Greetings, fellow vision wielders. This is Ciscus, and today I'd like to share with you my love for Pronged Staff. Yes, that's right, you were probably all thinking it. This video is going to be about using Truststones to make Pronged Staff happen. See, I've been dreaming about the day I bring Pronged Staff to the damage cap, and I knew that even if I'm amazing at this game, I would need the help of Truststones to make it there. But loading up a Truststone setup for such a kakamimi thing, such as reaching the damage cap with Pronged Staff, is dumb, right? Especially considering how clunky these runes are to work with. But you can't put a man with a dream down, so I was off to find a way to make this work. This led me to making my Paragon system for managing runes, unit favorites, and TMRs. And honestly, I don't think runes are such a hassle to work with anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I wanted to make Pronged Staff touch the damage cap, which meant hopping into formation to build my team. First on the list is Lady Moore herself, the wielder of my maxed out Platinum Mace, which I totally didn't get a premium pass to make and didn't eat 98 attack seals, nor did I need to hammer it to max out its stats. And right away, I could see I had a problem, because Lady Moore needs attack up and all my best attack runes were on my bells. As a mage, Lady Moore already has enough AP to smash all of her 8 casts of Pronged Staff at any mission I send her on. Which leads us to the first type of unit in the Paragon system, the Paragon unit. Because I figured that I'd want to go back to the current settings my bells have, I decided to save those rune settings on the unit that epitomizes how I use assault bells the most, Frederica. I quickly hopped into unit favorites and slapped that into Freddy's settings, then clicked Truststone set. Now if I ever wanted to pull out my assault bells, all I had to do was place, then paste Freddy, and then place the next unit that would actually be using the bells. Back in formation, I now had to place Glaciella with her monk sub-job so I could build a strike chain for Pronged Staff. But as I was about to set her up, I noticed that she had bells on her favorites, and I wasn't sure what I had done with those settings. So I guess now it's time to discuss the second kind of unit, the chill unit. As the name suggests, these guys are just chill. They're happy to copy settings my Paragon units already have saved. Or I use them so rarely or in low stakes content that doesn't really matter what rune settings they're packing. Most of my units will be like this so that I don't have to keep track of the differences. And the only thing I have to do to set them up is to make sure they don't have anything in their TMR slot. Let's do that to Glassy now so that I know the next time I use her, I won't have to worry about her messing with any of my rune settings. And we're done. So back to our Pronged Staff journey. I realized it would be best to set the materia settings for Lady Moore via favorites. She's kind of a diva that way, considering she's getting a very unique TMR setup that I doubt anybody else will ever use. Diva, isn't that a great name for a third kind of unit in the Paragon system? Because it is. The Diva is the third and rarest kind of unit you will ever build in the Paragon system. There are 2 conditions to set up a Diva. 1, you use them enough to justify saving the favorite, and 2, they use a TMR that you often use, but with a setup that isn't really a Paragon, maybe because only they use that build. This way, the important unit you like using with a rocking custom setup is always ready to go at a moment's notice. And we will be using Lady Moore a lot to try and hit that Pronged Staff damage cap. But wait. Why don't I just set favorites for all my units? Why should the Diva be rare? Well, my friend, the more Diva units we have in the roster, the more we run the risk of creating conflicting rune setups, with Divas and Paragons potentially pulling the same runes, resulting in earlier placed units losing their runes to later placed units. Another reason is not all units frequently run with one TMR. Some will use multiple TMRs, or multiple runes on the same TMR, or even multiple setups of runes on different TMRs. And if that's the case, it would just be better to Paragon those settings onto another, less used unit. That way, you can paste those settings to other units who like sharing the loadout, and you can get a modicum of convenience by always being able to tap paste with your frequently used but flexible unit. So again, back to the Pronged Staff journey. Our Diva needs her TMR settings saved, and I've settled on Saint Circlet, which gives us 42 more attack and another 30% attack if I can manage to cast the ability mid-fight. There were better attack increasing options, but because I seriously doubted that I'd have a chance to cast anything mid-chain, I settled for the base stats of Circlet. This justified setting Moore as a Diva because I was gonna be using her frequently to do this challenge, and she was going to be packing a unique setup for the Circlet. Next, I knew my Circlet would get stripped of its runes when I placed the better runes from bells on it, so I had to go back and make a Paragon for that setup, just so I could quickly get it up to usability if I needed it. This brings us to the equipment classifications in the Paragon system. I use Saint Circlet in low stakes content like daily farming and PvE. By the way, if you haven't already, raise this thing to level 20 because it makes brave farming on auto such a breeze. Slap it on and do your dailies and you'll get to max brave in no time. Anyway, back to equipment types. The Circlet actually falls into what I call the defaulted equipment type. Equipment I use often enough to justify slapping some green material on for the stat buff, but in not so crucial content like PvE or farming brutal quests, so I don't need pink runes on them. Ideally, all TMR that aren't used in high stakes content would be in this class, but really, who has the books to unlock all the pedestals? Typically, you wouldn't need to save these in anyone's favorites because you don't change the runes around on these too much, if at all. But if like me, you're up to some mischief, you could save them on a maximum of 1 unit so that you can go back to the settings really easy. Anyway, in contrast to that, we have Mainstay TMRs. And what better TMR to use as an example, but none other than Bear Hood. On a more serious note, Mainstay TMRs are TMRs that you use a lot and/or in high stakes content like Guild Battle, Arena, and even Selection Quest. Areas where you could really use that massive boost pink runes give you. These TMRs are the same ones you've decided need to be saved via Paragon units. So if you've been copying along, you already have a sense of which TMRs these are for your roster, and you don't have to go into equipment to set up these TMRs. You've already done the work in the favorite equipment setup, so just paste them in when you want to use them. The only reason you'd go into equipment to set runes with this system is if they're defaulted TMRs, and those you typically only ever have to do one time. I have about 20 defaulted TMRs, but after doing the work once, I can use those TMRs with rune buffs for conceivably the rest of my account's life, which is why I have both types in my account. Now that we've covered both TMRs and unit types, it's time to put that all together and see just how easy it is to build up a rune team with this system. I'll disband and start from scratch to illustrate. First, we need Lady Moore, who is a Diva in my system, which means I can just place and paste her. There we go. Next, we have Glassy Classic for the Pummel Chain, and she's not a commonly used unit in my roster. So I'm just gonna put in the Mantle first, because I want the Assault Mantle, which Lucio has Paragon, and then I'll put in Classic Glassy. It was just a chill unit, I don't use her that often, and unfortunately, empty TMR does still remove the existing TMR in the slot, but if I put in Lucio first, at least I know the settings are there. I'm just gonna equip. I wish that's one of my top recommendations is removing, if there's no TMR in the favorite slot, don't remove the TMR already in the spot. It'll make things a bit more workable. The next person I'll want is Severo, who is going to be running, I don't want to paste him. He's Paragoning something. So I'm just gonna cancel this. There you go. And then I'm gonna put in Kaleido Moon, which I have defaulted, and I don't really think he needs any assault stats, so even if it's not built for assault, it'll be fine. But I will give him this max assault iron rod, which I totally did not make alongside my max assault platinum rod. Next, we will want some more pummel action with Winter Ramada. And because Winter Ramada will be running bells, we're gonna want to Paragon in the special green-only settings, which I put on Kuri, even if that's more than he deserves. And again, always put the equipment first before the desired unit in the Paragon system, just so that you know you've pasted the right runes. Okay, last one would be the last strike unit I could find in water, Summer Elcirel. Now, Summer Elcirel is Paragoning Royal Wizette Dress, I think it's called. It's a aim-based Royal Wizette Dress, so I actually have to dial back, and I broke my own rules. Always put the equipment first. I wanted Lucio's bandana, which is just defaulted. So what I would normally do is, okay, I wanted Lucio's bandana, that's a defaulted equipment, so I would just have to put in Summer Elcirel, not paste, and just manually build her. I don't want to paste because I don't want to accidentally pull runes from the Wizette dress, just in case I'm using those runes elsewhere, maybe not even in this formation, right? And true, I agree, it's hassle. You don't want to keep worrying about that. And we'll actually get to that. We've got a solution for that too. And voila, you just need to add your Espers VCs and you're ready to go. And that's it. We got a Water Strike chain party formed with all rune TMRs working within the system. And I still retain the ability to go back to how my TMRs are usually set up without much work really. Just have to go into formation and do some pasting. In fact, you might want to go into formation sometimes just to paste TMRs in and get runes a certain way you like. Now at this point, some sharp wielders out there may be asking already, are you really sure you have no conflicts in your rune setup? After all, you did load some pink runes into Saint Circlet and then brought in rune setups for the Emberlight Mantle. You know that there are no pink runes in the defaulted ones, but how are you sure that you didn't create a conflict between the Circlet and the Emberlight Mantle? And what if in the future I want to build a formation with 5 high-use TMRs, which is very likely? How do you solve that? The truth is, with everything I've demonstrated for you now, you really can't. You can't tell. If you followed my system this far and put in 5 tailored TMRs, there'd be no systemic way, there'd be no in-game way to check that you didn't create a conflict. You know? There's really no way to view what runes are on these TMRs, and that's actually one of, I mean, you could guess that this attack set and this luck set is from a specific 6 TMRs, but what if you have 2 or 3 of those sets, right? And that's actually my number one complaint right now, and I think the biggest fix they could put in is just how to see if you did create a conflict. Even 6 pink pips over here around the TMR slot would be a great help. Pink, green, blue, purple, whatever, just so you can tell, is everything loaded with the rune? So that I can see if I'm getting the stats from those bonuses. But you can't. So you'd have to, by memory, know that the way you set up all those paragons and the way you set up all these defaulted TMRs, you'd have to know. But there is a third option, which is kind of the special sauce of the Paragon system. The last and best step that ties it all together, which I like to call Paragon Teams. But before we get to that, I'm sure you're dying to know if we indeed make the damage cap with Pronged Staff. And as much as I'd like to say we did, we didn't make it. My first session trying for the damage cap actually only got me this far. That's okay. This is actually fine. With the Paragon system, it's really no problem to swap back into this setup and then swap back to my usual setups for guild battle or arena. It doesn't take a lot of time at all because I've already done the work once. Speaking of running Lady Moore and this setup again, now would be a great time to plug my regular weekend stream called Sub-Job Shenanigans, where we use offbeat sub-jobs such as Severo with Monk or Somewhere Else Cyril with Paladin to try and beat the game's hard content. We even have 2 special exceptions where we use Pronged Staff or Resistance Break from the Cleric and Red Mage jobs. If that interests you, it happens every Saturday at 2:30 AM GMT. Alright, let's wrap this up and tie it all together by talking about Paragon Teams. Paragon Teams are essentially just groups of units that you have taken the time to make sure have no conflicts between the TMRs and runes they have. I like to use in-game themes to help me remember these, such as for example the 2nd Division of Leonis, Calum. These guys are packing a no conflict, no mage, AP generation setup with bells, mantle, apron, pareo, and fatigues. Or perhaps you are a fan of Wazette's 2nd Division, Ekito, and you have Severo, Uni, and Surges packing an arena/guild battle setup with bells, mantle, and mask. And because these are just memory tools, you can be as broad or specific as you want with how you set up these teams. Maybe Severo can mean magic main stat, or maybe be more specific, like magic attack type, or even black mage. The key here is to use ideas that you already have about units, such as Lilith being a bruiser, Severo being a magic user, and similar information that you're already storing in your brain and making it a bit more useful in the context of runes. It's a rather simple but powerful system that lets you leverage rune power and pays dividends in time. On that note, do tell me in the comments what teams you're excited to set up. You could also use the mainline game grouping to help you remember these setups, such as Final Fantasy VII Remake or Final Fantasy VI being your template Paragon teams. I prefer using MRs or less since those see less play, and using a more popular unit in a Paragon team runs the risk of me mispasting the Paragon team setup when I just want to use that unit. I have to admit, this made working with setups a bit more fun than it should have been, and I found myself thinking of Paragon teams even if I had enough already set up for most of the content I like to do. So that's it. That's the full demonstration of my Paragon system for unit, rune, and TMR management, as well as my journey to trying to hit the damage cap with Pronged Staff, which will continue. If you found this helpful, remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. This is of course useful only if you know how to use the favorite equipment system alongside the runes. So if you need a refresher on that, click the video on screen now. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.